Sentence fragments, probably the most common grammatical error in college and high school papers these days. Sentence fragment, of course, is an incomplete sentence, a thought fragment, as they're sometimes called. Today we're going to go ahead and discuss them. I'll help you identify these fragments in your own work, and then, of course, correct those fragments so that you'll have a much more effective piece. So I know this is grammar. I know grammar can be boring, guys, but these are very important. Your audience will judge you on your abilities to write mechanically correct sentences, and these sorts of fragments really stand out. So stick with me. It's going to be a brief lesson, but a helpful one. So first off, what is a sentence fragment? Well, as it says here on the screen, a fragment itself is a piece of a whole, like a piece that accidentally breaks off. Similarly, a sentence fragment is a piece of a whole sentence that has been broken off or separated from the whole. And this is typically because of an incorrectly placed period. This break results in an incomplete thought, which is why it's such a troublesome grammatical error. And I'll be honest with you, there are some grammar rules out there that just don't make a whole lot of sense and aren't really too big a deal when it comes to writing clear, powerful prose. Sentence fragments, however, do create lots of problems in clarity in your papers, so you want to make sure to deal with these. Sentence fragments, especially when they're repeated through a text, can drive readers to even question your skill or intelligence. Whether that's fair or not, it absolutely happens. And this can occur both within academic circles and outside of them. You know, maybe you're writing a cover letter for a job, which is more and more common these days. If you commit one sentence fragment after another, and the person reading it notices these, and lots of people outside of academia know what fragments are, well, that could cost you the job right there. So we want to make sure to deal with this. So the first step in recognizing when a fragment happens is first establishing an understanding of the sentence. Now, again, you know, grammar can be dull, all right, and I'm going to try to avoid going into too much lingo here. I don't think it really helps anyway. But there are a couple things about sentences you need to understand before we continue. So usually a sentence needs at least two elements to be considered whole. All right, and those two elements are a subject and a predicate. You probably remember hearing about these in elementary school. A subject is the central noun in a sentence, or a primary noun in the sentence, if you want to call it that. Basically, what or whom the sentence is about. A predicate, on the other hand, is the part of the sentence that contains the primary verb or action. So, you know, simply put, a sentence needs to be about something, and there has to be something occurring in the sentence for it to be whole. Simple sentences can be just two words long, honestly. The subject in the following examples, they're on the screen, that's highlighted in yellow, and the predicate is red. So sentences like John laughed, or Brenda cried, he argues. Okay, all of those sentences, though very short and very simple, are whole sentences because they contain a subject and a predicate. They contain something that the sentence is about, and also a primary action, something happening in the sentence. Knowing these terms really is important, like I said. I think sometimes we English teachers get a little obsessed with diagramming sentences, and I don't know that really helps people. But rather, you know, knowing to at least be able to identify when parts are missing from a sentence is key in identifying and correcting fragments. So as I stated earlier, many sentence fragments occur because those two parts, the subject and the predicate, are separated by a misplaced period. Okay, so you can look at some of the examples here. And this is, again, the most often way this actually happens. But the newly married couple went on a great honeymoon. Okay, couple is the subject, went is the action, and you can see that there's a period in between those. All right, neither of those two parts can stand on its own. Okay, they are not complete sentences. All right, you can see the second example there. The students who failed last week's test were completely distraught. Again, there's a period separating the subject and the predicate, which makes both of them fragments. So to correct many fragments, therefore, one only needs to remove that problem period. Okay, the period doesn't belong between them, and you can see the corrections there. The newly married couple went on a great honeymoon. The students who failed last week's tests were completely distraught. And you can hear it. If you say it out loud, you can hear that there's actually no break between those two parts of the sentence. And I usually recommend that to students. You know, read your stuff out loud. It may make you sound a little bit crazy, okay? But our ears are much more practiced at picking up mistakes than our eyes are at seeing them. And that's because we talk to each other all the time. Okay, you talk much more, I would suspect, than you read or you write. Okay, so take advantage of the fact that your ears are so practiced at picking up those mistakes. Now, the other way sentence fragments often happen uh, usually involves introductory phrases. Okay, simply put, an introductory phrase is just a part of a sentence that sets up the rest of that sentence. So it's probably easier if you just look at examples to understand my meaning. So if we'll see, if you look at those examples in the middle of the screen, the introductory phrases are in green. So when the football team lost yesterday's game, many of the players sobbed like children. So the first part of that sentence in green there is the introductory phrase. And you can see that it's not a whole sentence in and of itself. It's there to give more information and set up the second part of the sentence. Whenever I run more than a mile, my side really starts to hurt. If I intend to get good grades this semester, I really should study much harder. You see how that works. And if you want to find out if, part of your sentence is actually an introductory phrase, just imagine that someone came up to you on the street and said that part. And if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't sound whole, it probably is an introductory phrase. So imagine someone came up to you on the street and said, "Whenever I run more than a mile." You'd probably be very confused and you might actually run the other direction. It doesn't make sense. Or if I intend to get good grades this semester, there's something missing there. Something needs to follow that for it to make sense. Okay. Usually when a sentence fragment occurs, somebody again puts a period where it shouldn't be. They put it between the introductory phrase and the rest of the sentence. If you look a little bit further down on the screen, you'll see some examples of this. All right, putting that period there makes the introductory phrase into a fragment. Okay, because again, it's not complete. It needs the rest of the sentence. So when the football team lost yesterday's game, that can't be a sentence on its own. A period should not follow that. Okay, instead you need to replace it with a comma. And honestly, that's how simple it is to fix these sorts of fragments. So that pretty much concludes the formal lesson. I try to keep it as short as possible because I know it can be dull. But again, sentence fragments, identifying them, correcting them, very, very important to improving your writing. As always, if you want to go a little bit further and want to explore some of the other issues that go into good writing, my new book, Better Writing Beyond Periods and Commas, is available from Amazon.com and most major bookstores. And think about this too, guys. I know that these can be difficult to deal with, especially in our own writing. When we're engaged with our writing and we know what we're trying to say, sometimes we just kind of glaze over fragments and other sorts of problems. And that's why it's really, really important to proofread carefully, to do more than one draft when possible, to have other people read your work, or to read your own work out loud, because you want to catch those mistakes. I mean, writing isn't all about following the rules and having the commas in the right places and the periods in the right places. But in certain aspects of it, you will be judged by your audience. Your audience will evaluate you, will judge whether you have something worthy to say based on those mechanical elements. It's not really fair, but it does happen. So make sure that you pay attention to your own writing. Try and track down these sorts of errors when you can and correct them. So I hope this proved helpful to you. Go ahead and check out some of the other videos on the channel, and I should have more up before too long, and I appreciate your attention. Thanks.